If you're interested in scaling your real estate portfolio or just getting started in real estate, you're going to want to watch this video. This is a 111 unit, $20 million property. Today we're going to take you through it. We're going to also show you a bunch of different asset classes, different entry points into real estate. We're going to show you a $1 million, 8-unit, fully stabilized multifamily property. Great way to get started in multifamily. We're going to go to a suited house. They just finished suiting the basement. It's a great entry point into real estate. We're going to start at a townhome flip. It's one of the cheapest ways to get into real estate. He's in the middle of flipping it right now, so it's a great time to tour it. You'll get a good feel for what that would look like. Okay, so we're here with Jason Van Ward. I think we wanted to check out this property. This is a perfect example of a good starter property. You wouldn't get much cheaper, like you can get some really, really crappy stuff, but if you want a good property, you'd start kind of in this price point. If you could kind of tell us, what you paid for it, when you bought it, just to give us a ballpark range. You're going to do a flip, what you're planning to get out of it.
So we purchased this about a month ago. We got it in the 175 range. It's going to take about 3 weeks to fix. This is a nice simple one. Generally we take on more than that, but this was a one that pretty well anyone could do. Paint, flooring, not even all the flooring, but part of it, countertops, new appliances, just to kind of spruce it up. And then we're planning to put it back on the market around the 250 mark.
This is obviously mid-renovation. I think this is what you'll be dealing with if you buy something like this. You'll be renovating it to flip it or to have a rental. I love townhomes. We own them as well. You have a lot more flexibility than if you were to buy maybe a condo. You could get slightly cheaper, but I think townhomes, there's a really good market right now.
I think some big benefits with this one is that you actually get a yard. That's a big plus versus a condo. Backing onto the green space is exceptionally nice about this one.
So for something like this, it's a flip. I guess what are the risks? What's the risk here? You buy it and...
I think the initial risks is buying it and not understanding the condo docs, because those can really mess you up as far as the decisions that the condo board is making on your strata. The other risks is that you didn't see issues. Your structural issues are limited with a townhouse for sure. But yeah, there's always things like that, and that the market fluctuates.
Yeah, so for a brand new investor, if they haven't done it, just really briefly explain the financing of doing a flip compared to, let's say, a buy and hold rental.
Yeah, so banks don't like it when you go to an A lender and you're buying just to sell it in a few months. You can do that a couple times and then they're like, yeah, we don't want to talk to you anymore, because they make no money on that. There's no lender fees, which is great for the person buying, but they're not making any money, so they eventually pull the plug. So in these cases, we'll go to private lenders who will give you money quick, higher interest rate, but in this case will be 2 or 3 weeks of reno, a month before, because of Christmas, we're waiting till January to list it. So that gives you, a 2-month window, let's say, before we're selling it from buy to sell, and then a month to hold, so 3 months.
Yeah, and I think you, having done this so much, you understand all of that. Someone new coming in, I think sometimes they miss that if you take that private money at 10%, and the reno takes 8 months instead of 2, right? If you're doing all the stuff yourself, that could be a risk that I would always think thered be there.
100%. You gotta not be lazy if you're gonna do it after work, doing it all yourself, because the longer you take, it's gonna be expensive.
Yeah. Should I get in there? What is that other thing? Opens to
the attic, the attic hatch.
Oh, look at that. There's a light in here.
Yeah, it's ready to roll.
Yeah, this would be probably what you get for $1 in Edmonton. This was definitely a unique feature. It had an air hand dryer in the bathroom. I've walked thousands of units. I don't think I've ever seen that in somebody's house. So what do you look for when you buy a flip? Is it the mechanical? Is that one of the biggest things?
Yeah, I generally like to see that the maintenance has been kept up at least to some standard. And then if it hasn't, then obviously we factor in the pricing accordingly, but that's definitely a lot more headache.
So is the strata, they don't have anything to do with anything inside?
No,
it's only the exterior.
That's right. Yeah.
So you could make this a 1-bedroom or a 5-bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Could you legally put a bedroom in here?
You probably could. The challenge will be you'd have to replace that window, and because that's an exterior element with the strata, then
why it has to be bigger than that?
Yeah, probably.
So that's I think what a perfect example of a starter property is. Thanks for taking us through.
You bet.
So next we'll show you what a stabilized property will look like. That would kind of be the next step as an investor. You'd go to a property like that. So now we're on the way to the second property. I think this will be a good example of if you want a fully stabilized property, you don't want the headache of doing a flip. This will be an example of that. So they've essentially suited a house, so you're getting 2 units. The numbers on these usually work pretty well as far from just a buy and hold perspective. For sure, if you think housing is going to go up long term, I think this will be a good example of that. So now we're at the second property. If I was just starting brand new in real estate, this is probably what I'd buy. It's a suited house, pretty simple. We're here with the ready to go guys, Dallas and Trevor. If you just give us a little example, kind of, when you bought it, rough purchase price, what you want to sell it for, what it took to turn it into this.
Yeah, for sure. So basically when we bought the house, it was, the basement was completely gutted. The main floor on this one didn't have a whole bunch done to, or it was basically done. We just did a quick paint job upstairs. But we knew right from buying this, we were putting a basement suite into it. So we bought it for $310. Put about, for the basement suite, it was about $130 we put into it.
So when I'm at real estate stuff, people always come up and this seems to be the thought is they're just going to buy a house, suite it, going to go great. What would be something maybe they're not thinking of?
I think there's lots of things you can run into when suiting a house, opposed from just flipping a house. Even if you're just going to buy one of these as yourself and then do it yourself, there's lots of things to look for, like the layout of the basement, the way your heating system is going to have to be done, the plumbing is going to have to be done. If you don't have a general idea about that stuff, you can run into a lot of big issues of even just the layout itself. So say, in this case, this basement, it's pretty good size. It only has 1 bedroom in it, because if we would have put 2 bedrooms down here, the layout would have been significantly different and way smaller. So in this case, we figured, well, we'll put 1 bedroom in this. It's going to make more sense to appeal to maybe a couple that's going to want to rent it down here, and opposed to having, maybe 2 buddies or something going to school down here. So I think just the biggest thing overall is if somebody's never done one of these before, I think it would make sense to have consulting from somebody that's done it, and makes sense that the house or something that they're looking at would make sense for what they want to put into it.
On something like this, you're taking temporary debt to do it, or what's the financing look like?
So we use all private financing. We have a lender that will finance basically the whole purchase price plus construction. Usually is just looking for an idea of what we're planning on doing, so he knows where all the funds are going. Typically, most private lenders want 20% down, and then you're paying, right now we pay 10 to 12%, I think maybe 13 on one of them, on interest-only payments, basically. So that was one of the big factors with this one too, is it was sitting quite a while. Those payments add up. People don't think about too is you're paying the property taxes, you're paying all the heating bills and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff adds up quite a bit over there.
This was literally, when you came in, it was, this was walled off here, and they had I don't know if they had a little built-up stage in here. I don't know what they were doing. But it was all completely gutted down here, but all the framing was still down. So, and then the bathroom was actually a little bit more forward. So we just pushed it all back. And since we were doing the 1 bedroom, just basically made it so that it had a joint ensuite basically feel.
And then mechanical, completely separate then?
The mechanical
2 furnaces and everything?
2 furnaces, yeah. Oversized hot water tank, and then new manifold system. So
both use one water tank?
yeah. We were originally going to put 2 rooms down here. And then by the time we kind of chalked it all out, we were like, oh, it's going to be a super small dining and living space. And we're like, well, let's do 1 massive open room. That way it feels nice and big down here. And
yeah.
Suited properties like this can definitely be a good gateway into real estate. I personally would buy it from someone who's already suited the basement. That way you're taking a lot of the risk out of it, for sure, if it's one of your first deals.
So now we're heading to the next property. This would be an entry-level multifamily. So it's 8 units, cost around $1 million. Pretty stabilized. You wouldn't have to do a lot of work if you bought it today. It's an older building, and this is where I think a good entry point for multifamily would be. So this would be a stabilized 8 unit. Once you want to move into multifamily, you do something like this. So it's this one, all the renovations have already been done. You take it over, it'd be pretty cut and paste. Property like this would cost right around $1 million. So depending on the financing, you wouldn't have to put a lot of money in. Most of the big work's already done.
this is what I'd recommend for maybe that second or third property. So this building was built in the 60s. It's 8 units. They're all 1 bedroom. I think there's 1 2-bedroom. The mechanical's original. So there's going to be some work to do, but it's not going to be a lot of overhead over the next couple of years. This would be pretty standard unit for this year of product, in that 115 to 130 a door range. It's going to be 1 bedroom. We updated the paint. The cabinets have been done in the 2000s. This is a pretty standard what you're going to get for this price point. 8-unit buildings like this can be a great way to get your foot in the door of multifamily. There is some risks or downside with them. Because you only have 8 tenants, if 1 or 2 are bad or move out, it can really affect your cash flow. You need to make sure that you have big reserves. If a boiler or something goes, you probably won't have the cash flow to cover that. So just be aware of that getting into an asset like this. We're just going to the Riverbend property. This is 111 units, so this is definitely a much bigger scale. This is where I think most people should try to get to. This property is split into 2 separate buildings. It's in one of the best neighborhoods in the city. I love buying in these established neighborhoods because it's very hard for new competition to come in. They'd have to get this much land. Even if they do build, we bought at probably 40% below replacement costs. So if a new building does come online, the rents will have to be a lot higher than ours, so you're not dealing with a bunch of new competition coming in. So this is Riverbend Estates. It's worth about $20 million today. It's 111 units. And it's a great neighborhood. It's a lot different scale than some of the other stuff we looked at today, and this is kind of the progression of where I think most investors want to get. So I'll go show you around, show you some of the stuff that's in a building this scale, that's not in some of the smaller stuff we looked at. Let's have a look. So when you buy a building this scale, there's lots of extra things. You got an office, you got elevators, we got a fitness room, a pool. Those all also come with extra costs. We found out the hard way when we first got the elevator. There's lots of extra maintenance there. There's lots of things that you don't think of when you're used to owning smaller properties. So when you buy a building at scale, now with financing, it's a lot easier to get more scale because you can leverage so high. But there's lots of things that you have to be aware of, keeping your CapEx budget. Something like this was a motor from the elevator, something we wouldn't have really thought of. I think this was $15,000 or something. To fix the elevator totally cost us $30,000 when we first bought this property. It wasn't an expense we were thinking of. So even though sometimes you can scale up, due to leverage, you still have to have reserves in place in order to take care of all the maintenance of the bigger properties like this. Once you make the jump to properties like this that are much bigger, the one thing that changes is on the smaller stuff, pretty much anything that goes wrong, a handyman or someone who's been around construction can fix. When you get into these properties, there's no way just a regular handyman is going to come in and fix the boiler. You're going to need experts. It's going to cost a lot more if stuff goes wrong. Now we'll head up to one of the units. This is actually the only unit that's vacant in the entire property. So this is built in 1980s. This is a pretty standard unit for that era. Carpet, linoleum. There's not a lot of upgrades had been done. We like to buy buildings like this where we can come in and renovate the units. There's a lot of upside there. A lot of the big work's done. The roof, the outside, the windows, the balconies have all been redone. This property is kind of unique. It has an outdoor pool, which is kind of rare for a property of this size and this age, for sure in Canada. Great amenity. The tenants love it. But it's definitely something that also comes with a lot of extra expense. You have to have someone come and check the water every day. You have to have someone come and clean the pool every day. So again, it's a great thing to have. It's nice to have on the property. It attracts tenants, but it also is an extra expense that you have to factor in. So that should give you a good idea of what it's like to manage a 100-unit property. They're great. The economies of scale are great. It's way easier to manage one property like that than a portfolio of smaller properties. But you're not going to start out there. I've done all of these different things. When we owned a trailer park, we would flip trailers and sell them. We turned a house into a duplex. We started with the 8-unit properties. And there's no right way to get into real estate. And it's kind of dependent on the person. If you have a construction background, you might like the flip idea. Flipping a townhome is a great way to get started. If you're working full-time at a job and you want to get into the market, you could buy the stabilized, suited house, live in one of the units, rent the other one out. You're in real estate, you can let it appreciate. If you want to start with an 8-unit, I would recommend buying a stabilized one where it's already a lot's done. I know you lose out on some upside of the value add stuff, but there's a lot of risks, a lot of things that can go wrong when it's your first property and you're trying to do that. And then at some point you get into assets like this. The economies of scale are there. I think you'll understand it once you buy a property like this. You won't want to go back and buy smaller stuff because it just makes more sense at scale, but you're never going to start out buying something like this. And I think that's really important, and that's why we wanted to make the video, to show you all the different entry points in real estate. Hopefully it was helpful. You took something away from it today. We'll see you guys in a bit.